Hello everyone, thank you for joining us for today's webinar on FinLeads Product Showcase.
My name is Pratin from Tavant Marketing Team and I'm your host today.
FinLeads is the industry-leading platform built on Salesforce for a better customer engagement and acquisition. In today's competitive world, companies need to convert prospects into customers quickly. In fact, as per a recent study, if you are contacting your lead within 5 minutes, the chances of converting them is 21 times greater. So FinLeads is meant to help you address problems beyond this. Our first speaker for today is Matthew Wood. Matt is the Senior Director, Consumer Lending at Tavant. He has a rich experience in consumer lending industry and has developed and launched 10 digital properties so far. Welcome, Matt. We have our second speaker for today, that is Samya Ghosh. Shamu is the Vice President of Digital Services at Tavant. He leads the Salesforce practice and has over 2 decades of experience in customer and consumer-facing applications and data management. So talking about today's session, our experts will cover Tavant VºX, which is our AI-powered digital lending product suite. We'll cover an overview of FinLeads product, how to enable early engagement with your customers, lead lifecycle management, the ecosystem and features of FinLeads, and a walkthrough of our product and some of the successful implementations we've done so far. Before we start, just quick things. You can direct your questions to the host by using the chat window on the right side of the widget. We'll be addressing these questions at the end of the webinar. So without further ado, let me hand it over to Matt for the product showcase. Over to you, Matt.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. And just really a thank you to everyone that's joined us today on the webinar. I really appreciate it. What I hope that we're going to kind of share and understand with each other today is to get a sense of, when we say, our market branded product suite, Tavant VºX, I want you to go away with a sense of what that means. And then we're going to spend the rest of our time, looking very closely at our product that we call FinLeads. And help us understand what FinLeads is, what it's for, what it can do. Now, when you look at the VºX landscape, what's really in that landscape? We have, now everything starts with Fin, and so like financial, right? So we have our financial experience, our Fin experience, our financial leads, Fin Connect, FinSight, FinRules. Fin experience is your front-end experiences with whether you are a borrower, a customer, a loan officer. These are different ways that you experience your job, organize your work. FinLeads is a very interesting flavor of an experience because it combines the strengths of Salesforce with the strength of a very focused, dedicated front-end experience for a loan officer. FinConnect is a technology behind the scenes. It integrates across the ecosystem of data providers into all of our front-end experiences. It also helps connect the dots between the systems that you have behind the scenes in your companies with the data that you need to consume or grab in order to kind of bring forward that digital experience. I was just talking yesterday with a leader of Olive Mortgage for a large bank, and what kind of was mentioned last night at dinner was we always benefit from bringing clean data in upfront, not being removing the possibility of questioning the data allows us to automate more strongly against it. FinConnect is, that's exactly what FinConnect does. It brings in the data up front, it brings it in clean, it's reliable, it's valid. FinSight and FinRules, those are 2 other products. They are what they sound like. One provides insight into what's going on, uses AI and ML to provide those insights that become actionable by the rest of the product suite. And FinRules is a lending industry-focused platform and rules engine. In this case, its most powerful offering right now is the single-click AUS, or dual AUS call, as we call it, as we've dubbed it. The ability to look at both of the major GSEs side by side and choose which one's best for your mortgage industry lending application. Okay, moving forward. Okay, so what is FinLeads? And I'll probably call on my colleague Shamo to chime in a little bit here. It's his baby, it's his product. But let me tell you what I think it is. There's a lot of content on this slide, but just put it short. You're a loan officer. You have to get your work done. You want to get your work done efficiently and as effortlessly as possible. You also want to improve the way you're doing work. You want to be able to do the right thing at the right time. You're a business owner. You want your loan officers to be able to understand the scope of their job and help better enable them beyond just their relationships that they brought in the marketplace, enable them to execute lead to application, application to loan. So FinLeads is a platform that helps you do that. FinLeads is a front-end experience for your loan officer. It's a single context. If you're a loan officer, maybe you're a loan officer listening on the phone today. If you're a loan officer, you would do all of your daily tasks inside of FinLeads. But here's the good news. It's connected to everything else. So it's pulling through your Salesforce CRM. It's pulling your leads into you. It has a workflow based and personalized on how you want to run your workflow. So it's not one size fits all from a flexibility point of view. It's how do you want to configure your workflow. So there's a high degree of personalization to use as a loan officer. And then it also allows you to have clean handoffs. When you have all the data gathered, you have a loan application complete, you've been able to reduce the amount of fallout up front, you now have a clean handoff to your LOS, and here's the real important thing, you are able now to help the life of the loan through kind of that processing underwriting phase. You'll be getting information up on your screen, what's going on with the loan, what needs to happen, what conditions need to be acted upon, and you're able to now push those conditions out to your customer in a pretty easy manner. You don't have to kind of sift the sand with your processors. FinLeads combined with the interaction and integration with your LOS makes it so there's clarity of action and clarity of task. I mean, Shamo, what else would you want to add to that?
I think
kind of
a couple of points I just to add to your points itself, Matt, is conceptually where we see FinLeads is as a single pane of glass for the loan officer to drive their day-to-day. It may not drive it 100% of the time, but 90-95% of the time it should be able to drive all their daily activities, and that means activities that they are doing in acquiring new customers. So the lead and the funnel expansion portion of their life cycle, all the way to actually taking an app and being able to track that app is going through in as worry-free a manner as possible till closure. So it's a single pane of glass. It doesn't mean that all the work is being done by FinLeads, but it, like Matt is saying, it's integrated with the systems that are doing your systems of record to actually help the loan officers execute their workflow in a seamless manner. The second thing I think is that it is built as an omni-channel tool. So one of the things that that we know that happens today is that as loan officers execute different portions of their responsibility and are switching between multiple applications, there's data loss, or at a minimum there's data recreation that has to happen. So FinLeads ensures that all of that is happening in a seamless manner. And also every single interaction that today might be happening offline, whether it's a call that your loan officer is making to a borrower or a potential, it's an email that is being sent, it could even be text. All of that is recorded against that particular interactions history, and that can be mined in the future. The last piece, it's a shout out to the great partners that we have in Salesforce. Is obviously it's built on top of Salesforce, which is obviously best in class in terms of the capabilities that brings to the table. So whatever FinLeads brings to the table in terms of the vanilla implementation for the mortgage industry, the lending industry, it can be expanded in very many different ways, because really Salesforce today is a platform. So those are a couple of things that I wanted to add, Matt, to the points that you're making.
Thanks, Shamo. So just because we covered a lot, so just quick summary. Best practices and preferred practices. FinLeads enables those. A single pane of glass for all of us that are loan officers. An omni-channel experience, which cuts across, enables multiple forms and means of communication. Of course, it leverages Salesforce Forward as a technology. So there are all the strengths and kind of the co-evolution of the way FinLeads is going to grow over time with Salesforce over time. So there's a great deal of strength and also kind of reinforcing, as Salesforce innovates, so does FinLeads. As FinLeads innovates, so does Salesforce. And then kind of the closing thought is it's call center compatible, meaning that this will work in the many different flavors of loan officer engagement that we have in our companies. As a mortgage company owner, I can have loan officers that are distributed retail, very classic, very typical. I can blend that in with some loan officers working centrally in a call center. Or I can take it even further and have a separate and parallel work team that all they do is work in the call center. It's compatible across those. It's not either or, and they don't contend one with another when they are coexisting. Okay, next slide. So again, this is kind of more about the how it works. So we talked about what FinLeads is. How does it work? Of course, the goal of FinLeads is to manage the leads itself. It's to manage the leads in a way that they don't exist in a vacuum and they don't exist as a task on a spreadsheet. So quite often, we'll be buying, tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars of leads into our mortgage companies. And quite often, our ability to track the individual is weak. Our ability to shepherd and guide and build a customer journey around a given lead that becomes a person, that becomes a borrower, can be strengthened. And FinLeads strengthens that throughout its life cycle. And this is why the relationship to Salesforce is so important, because you're not replacing a CRM, we're augmenting and strengthening what the CRM does best. So in terms of enabling the life cycle, you start at the beginning and draw it to the end. You're okay, we can go forward. And then to the next slide, we're going to look a little bit at, okay, what's the lending ecosystem? This slide here is just to help us understand a little bit more plainly who is it for. At the top of this little pyramid, you have marketing people, direct and field loan officers are the major stakeholders. When we say omni-channel, as you see the next band below, that's the channels we're speaking of. Ways of communicating, but more importantly, think of it as ways of interacting. And then you move down to, okay, what are the functional components? What are the parts and pieces that make, this glorious vision we just laid out for you, that make all the what of FinLeads come to life? Lead management, you're able to handle alerts, reporting, document tracking. That's a key one for all of us. And mortgage, tracking the documents and getting them out and back into the LOS. FinLeads helps broker and guide all of that. From a reporting aspect, you have the strength of reporting that comes with Salesforce. And a quick little side note, what I've noticed is companies, and this is when I say this, it's for me working in industry across many, many companies. I've noticed companies that look at reporting as status do okay. Companies that look at reporting as collaboration do really well. And from FinLeads, that is going to natively happen within the application. Looking at what is going on as the means to collaborate when we should engage. FinLeads is great at helping you sort that out and great at coordinating it. Now, Einstein is fun to talk about. It's a fun word to say, but it's also the AI engine behind Salesforce. Many of us already know that. But where AI starts coming into our reality as loan officers is sometimes we don't notice a particular segment in our leads that needs more attention. Sometimes we need help building out a campaign so the campaign itself is richer or more targeted, matches better to a message that we're going to attempt to A/B test. Einstein will help us with all those things, among many others. But that's kind of a couple examples of how Einstein will come to bear in FinLeads for your benefit. And look at the rest, influencer marketing, admin, knowledge, collaboration. I guess the one I want to tease out there that really stands out for me is the influencer marketing. FinLeads is intended to make our lives as loan officers better. FinLeads is also intended to help us expand who we work with and how we work with them. And the influencer marketing role is really a strong set of capabilities that helps us reach out a little bit further beyond ourselves, a little bit further beyond the traditional purchase lead market, so that we can start engaging more robustly with the ecosystem in the industry around us. Be able to do more with what we bring to the table in terms of our network, our connections, the realtors we know. How do we expand that out and have it come to bear more forcefully on what we're trying to accomplish? All right, the bottom row is just integrations. Boom, 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 just read them. There they are, but it's everything you would expect. On the right-hand corner, you see a kind of credit, U.S. Postal Service, verification, employment, income, assets, everything that we have available today from enriching the flow from a data integration point of view. All right, we're going to bump to the next slide. All right, so Shama, I'm going to ask you to jump in on this one just to spell me off a little bit. But when you look at the key features, we've touched on some of them already, but let's flip it on its axis, and let's look at the features of how they exist from the beginning of lead acquisition to kind of the powerful end state of a customer being onboarded. So
Matt, if I can
jump in
for a second, I think one of the things that you'll notice is that you see the chevron-like the life cycle view come in always. So one thought process that we've brought to the table in building FinLeads out is that even though this is primarily meant as a tool or a platform for your loan officers or other employees and associates, our go-forward view towards building anything is how does it improve the experience of the life cycle, the life cycle experience of a borrower. And that's really the viewpoint with which we start building, any of our platforms or applications. And that's the reason you'll see, us always take a very borrower-centric view towards the way we lay out, our product features and our product thought processes. So like Matt is saying, right from the get-go, we are looking at it from a borrower's perspective. When does the borrower first appear on a lender's radar, and how do they, move forward? And at each step in serving the borrower, what are some of the key capabilities that might be required, by your loan officer?
Very good, thanks, Shamo. And if you're to sit down with Shamo, he is the product owner, and kind of ask, why are certain features being built first, second, third, and fourth? How are we organizing the investment and the R&D into this product? It all comes back and kind of turns on the customer experience. In final analysis, it's the conversion of a lead to a customer that we're all seeking, and that's why we start there. And then building the loan officer experience into and reinforcing the customer experience. It's a subtle way, and in ways, it's a subtle thing to say, and in a way, it sounds a little bit soft. But really, there's a lot of hard choices to be made about what matters most. And in this flow, when you read it, kind of left to right, you look at, say, full 1003 application intake, lead conversion. What is that experience going to be like? That experience is going to be biased towards clarity with your customer. So it's easy for your customer to understand what is being asked of them, which isn't necessarily the case with, a standard ERLA, right? So, or the new ERLA even more. And so, that's an example specifically of having that strong bias towards the design of experience. And when you move down into, document generation or full automated underwriting support, even down to closing deep into the pipeline, what's really convenient, puts you at ease as a loan officer is those things that you used to have to email and call people for are now showing up in your screen. So there really isn't any ambiguity in terms of where we are in the life cycle. You don't have to pause the work that you're in just to find something as simple as, how close to closing are we? Where many of us in our own kind of personal experiences have seen, kind of how difficult the mortgage life cycle workflow can really be. All right, what do we have for the next slide? Sorry.
Just to add a couple of other points, I think one of the key things, Matt, you focused on the downstream life cycle, but let me also add a few things, in the upstream areas. I'm excited about that kind of stuff. you are expanding reach, So one of the key things, Pratin started the webinar by saying that, the ability to react very quickly when a potential lead or a borrower appears in your ecosystem for the first time is a great metric. It's a great parameter to track, how likely you are to convert them. And that means that you have to have the ability to reach out to all the channels through which you potentially do, your initial acquisition. To automating the first reaction to that lead appearing to your ecosystem, and that means that you not only have to be able to reach out to marketplaces, you have to be able to reach out and integrate with your organic lead generation ecosystems. Salesforce brings to the table Salesforce Marketing Cloud, which is a great tool to coordinate and build journeys. But also that, one key aspect to that is with the data all residing now in a combination of, let's say, Salesforce Marketing Cloud and FinLeads, you have the ability to take that data, analyze it, and go back and see, which acquisition channels are actually the most profitable for you, which ones are the ones that are converting better, where should you, redouble your focus. So it's not just about looking at, at a particular lead and saying how likely, how soon, with what priority should I be acting on that. It's also with what priority should I be investing my, expensive marketing dollars, so that I can, get those better leads itself into my ecosystem. And then, the second portion, which is the lead engagement, is every single customer, we hear in marketing terminology, especially digital marketing terminology today, that you're really dealing with the customer of one. So broad segmentation strategies just don't work anymore. So the ability to take a combination of who the borrower is, where and how did they appear on your ecosystem, and who is serving them, what skills do they bring into the product, to the process, what product is the customer interested in, looking at all those parameters and being able to define, a life cycle or a process that is most convenient for the customer, I think is key to making sure that the initial experience that your borrower is having is the most efficient. With that, let me take a pause and I'll hand it back to Matt, and he'll talk about what we've done with a couple of our customers.
Sure. Thanks, Shama. Appreciate it. All right, we'll go to this next slide. Really just want to touch on kind of one case study or kind of success story with one of our customers. So, here you have a very large originations firm that also has a very large servicing arm. They have a large, traditional retail footprint. At the same time, they have a call center-based loan officer footprint. So in their context, they were looking for a tool that would help them to drive productivity into the call center, but at the same time, not just help people do more of the tasks they're doing today, but also enable a whole different set of tasks around acquisition and retention. And so in this context, Shamo and his team came into our client, and they worked with the client to first, kind of re-examine and interrogate what's going on with Salesforce in their context, and how they're approaching Salesforce writ large as a CRM. So some work and analysis there. Then in parallel, defining the FinLeads configuration that's going to work best for them, and putting that into motion and connecting the two dots. Now, interestingly enough, you kind of see the orange banner at the bottom here in terms of an increase in productivity and increase in app intake. Also, what we're seeing kind of now, this has actually been a few months ago, what we're seeing on the ground of that same client is just loan officers themselves are glad for it because their lives have become easier. So their daily effort in terms of what to do next, how to do it, how much work should I be getting done, how do I become more productive? Those are all kind of questions that are just off the table. Come into work, use the tool that's available, and they're able to accomplish a significantly larger volume of work than before. I'm just kind of putting myself in their shoes. Wouldn't that be great to be able to come to work tomorrow and be able to do, 3 or 4 times the amount of work you did today? That's essentially what FinLeads coupled to Salesforce did for this client. I guess the scale of operations is a good thing to note. It's not small, it's large. The level of integration, so this had integrations reaching deep into their operational footprint, across their loan origination system and their, telephone system in terms of dialer integration, and also upward towards many different kinds of lead sources. So combining all those at the same time, that help this connection between a centralized loan officer footprint with a field loan officer footprint, being able to drive and generate business from a retention point of view from their servicing portfolio into the origination arm of the company, and also delivering those servicing retention opportunities out to loan officers as additional opportunity for business, which simply just existed but was very difficult to distribute. And so as a loan officer, I'm on the receiving end of not only the ability to get more done in my day, but also I now have a new kind of economic driver. The company is able to provide more to me to act upon, which is kind of, what you would expect as kind of success across the board for both the loan officer and the firm itself. So that's a quick thumbnail sketch of some success we've had with one of our clients. Anything to add before we transition forward, Shamu?
I think it's a great vindication of the fact that, our vision for what FinLeads is working. It's a live case study. It's working well with a fairly large group, on both sides of the retention and acquisition groups. So it works well with, completely new lead life cycles as well as lead management life cycles for borrowers whom you already call customers. So in a lot of different perspectives, this is a great validation that, that sort of the vision that we've put together for the product is executing well. That's always, gratifying for us.
That's a good thing to know it's working. Yeah. Folks on the phone, I wish I could see your eyes. I glossed over maybe too quick Tavant, who we are. I'll take but a minute. So Tavant is a company that's been around for a substantial amount of time, almost 20 years now when you kind of look at it. I did my internship with Tavant back when I was in grad school, and so that makes me feel old. But headquartered in Santa Clara, definitely a Silicon Valley-based company, and all that means. Overall size, here we have 2,500 employees on the slide. It's a little bit, behind the curve. There's more than that now. We're growing rapidly, kind of year over year. Strong footprint across the United States, and you can see regional sales offices across the world. Definitely, powered from a development sense from Noida and Bangalore. And we have some great talent, outstanding talent behind the scenes at Tavant that help make all this happen across our product teams and our services team. We've talked a lot about lending. As a company, we do other things across other industry verticals, aftermarket, which really means kind of warranties, media, a lot of work in media labs, and retail. So I think now's the good time to go to a Q&A. All right, Pratin, I'll hand this back to you.
All right, thank you, Matt. So we have a couple of questions, but before I move, just a small reminder to our audience. If you have more questions, please feel free to place them in the chat window, and we are going through these questions and we'll take them up as and when it comes. So moving on to the first question, it says, does this require Salesforce to work? If so, what type of licensing do we need? So Shamu, Matt, you would like to take
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, absolutely. This is actually built on top of Salesforce. So it utilizes the Salesforce, underlying Salesforce platform. So it does require, Salesforce for FinLeads to work. And like I said, it actually relies on some of the native capabilities that the CRM platform brings to the table. In terms of licensing, what FinLeads assume is that your licenses are provisioned for access to some of the core Salesforce objects like leads, accounts, person accounts, opportunities. But after that, really licensing is more of a question that is between our client and Salesforce. Those types of accesses can be configured through many different levels of Salesforce licensing. So it's not something that we get involved in, as long as the basic set of features that FinLeads requires, which is actually fairly minimal, are provided by the platform that you've acquired.
All right. We have another question. How long does it take to implement FinLeads?
A very basic vanilla implementation of FinLeads. So FinLeads, as Matt had shown, is built around certain modules. There's the lead management module. There's the personalized workflow build out. There's the loan management module. So some of this, I'll put on my consulting hat, and the best answer is it depends. But a vanilla, implementation around the lead and the lead management workflows can be accomplished, very comfortably in a 10 to 12 week period. Obviously, as more complex integrations, the LOS integrations, your third-party integrations around the loan app intake process comes into play. We see that all of our lenders have certain tweaks to the system, nuances that require a certain level of customization. So that can be longer, but at least the basic FinLeads are around the lead management aspects with integrations into the lead sources, that we already provide for. We have about a dozen connectors built out already. That can be achieved in a 10 to 12 week period.
Yeah, so the short answer is weeks, not months. And the key thing to keep your eye on is how complex the integrations are behind the scenes. So for one of our customers, they have a very exotic LOS, loan origination system under the covers. And the good thing that they had done is they had prepared for this. So actually using some of Tavant team members ahead of the release, ahead of the implementation, they've been able to prepare the integration tier and then kind of smooth the way. But for other clients where that preparation hasn't happened, of course, there's going to be more effort involved. Okay, next question.
All right. Yeah, we have a couple of more questions. So is this more applicable to retail or call center-based acquisition operations?
Yeah, so the question was, what kind of business model does FinLead support, or what kind of business model is FinLead intended for? And the good news is it's flexible enough to work across three different business models simultaneously as you need. So let's say you and I own a mortgage company. We have distributed retail loan officers. FinLead's perfect for that. Like an example in the success story, I kind of walked us through. We have also a centralized loan officer presence, kind of at a corporate footprint. Fielding traffic in and calls in and spinning leads out to loan officers. So it supports that also. And then the third model is that we touched on with kind of that notion of send notification in the demo, is it also will coordinate and orchestrate with your front end point of sale experience for your customer, for your borrower. So it really can work across the major business models that we have and had. Okay, next question.
So the next question is, what can really be personalized workflows, templates, and FinLeads?
Okay, so the question was, how, so this is always the age-old debate. So for anyone on the line that has been around software a bit, customization, configuration, personalization, these are very emotionally charged terms, right? Because they can lead to a lot of success and a lot of grief. So I think this will be our kind of our last question we'll answer before we wrap up. So Shamo, what about customization, configuration, personalization?
So I think what FinLeads does is it brings to the table a set of out-of-the-box templates, whether it's around the way you configure, your lead scoring, whether it's around the way, you can use a templatized, workflow with a combination of source, product interest from the borrower and loan officer skill to configure the workflow. And the last piece is around the content templates like text messages or emails. It also has a set of those pre-configured. It brings a lot of those to the table out of the box, so you can adopt what is there out of the box. But in most situations, what we see is that there are always tweaks to it. So it does provide the hooks. The way the FinLeads framework is developed is to be able to provide the hooks for all of those to be tweaked and configured. There's probably some a business case there somewhere in terms of how much you configure versus use the vanilla, and what pays off in terms of either time or cost, to get this to the market in front of your loan officers. But you can go all the way from the spectrum of adopting to the vanilla model to configuring it completely.
Okay. Just one last thought to add there is many times our most successful kind of loan officer retail branches are very different one from another. And because of that, knowing that, under the covers, what Shamo and the team has done is to provide for that flexibility, provide for configurability, so that the way you run your branch can be the way you run your branch. The way you run your team is the way you want to run your team. It doesn't have to look like the LO branch next door. And again, there's business decisions there, and there's implications for ownership. But in terms of being able to match where you are today and how you do business, and help you improve and build up on that, that's exactly where we're going to start from. All right, that's all the time we have for the webinar today. I'm going to turn it over to Pratin just to wrap it up. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's been fun.
Thank you very much, folks, for joining. We look forward to chatting and continuing the conversation offline.
All right. Thank you, Shamo. Thanks, Matt, for taking us through this insightful session. Indeed, the customer engagement and acquisition looks really exciting and really easy, at least for me after this particular session. With this, we are bringing the session to a close. I, Pratin, your